to analyze how Arizona workers ages 16 or older travel to work, carpool, private vehicles, public transportation, or other. Data from 20 workers were collected and are shown in the table below. So I have the table here, and we want to analyze this table and create frequency table and a relative frequency table from the raw data provided. So I'm just going to copy this table and I will paste it right over here into an Excel sheet. That is the first step that I doing. You notice this data represents transportation, which is just one variable. So the data is collected for one variable, and that variable is a qualitative variable because those are not numbers. So this is a qualitative or categorical data or variables. So the correct graph that we are going to use to display this data is going to be either the pie chart or the bar chart. And since I don't have the option of a pie chart here, I'm going to select the bar chart because qualitative data is either represented with bar chart or a pie chart. Now, I am going to create the frequency table for this data. So I'm just going to try to create a table here, transportation. I'm going to say frequency here and then relative frequency. This doesn't have to be perfect because it's just, for you, so you're not confused. So I put the categories here. Now I put the labels here, and now I'm going to put the categories. I have 4 types of transportation. Carpool, I'm just going to copy these. It's just easier for me to do it. And the other thing is I like to copy over the data because the original data I already copied. I am not going to try to type it by hand because I might just make a typo, and then Excel is not going to recognize it. All right, so you can just do that, and then you're going to find the frequencies of carpool, basically how many times carpool is repeated here. Of course, you can count it by hand, but that's going to be a lot of work if you have a big chunk of data. So the easiest way to do this is by utilizing Excel. The function that we're going to use in this case is the function CountIf. So we know that each time we're going to use Excel and we need Excel to perform an operation, we have to start with an equal sign. Otherwise, Excel is going to treat what we're writing as a text. So CountIf, as soon as I type the word count, I have some suggestions here. So the CountIf is the function that I'm looking for. I double clicked it, and then I see the word range here. I'm not clicking on it or anything, but I see it highlighted. So I know the function now requires the range. The range is my raw data. So I'm just going to select my raw data. I am holding the left button on my mouse and just dragging down. And then I see a comma, but before I go to the comma, I don't want this to move anywhere. But I really want this function to move down to the next category, which is private, and count these. So I'm going to copy this down. I will show you how to do it later. But in the process, Excel is going to understand to each time the function moves down one row, everything has to move down one row. So that's why I need to lock this raw data range in place because I don't want it to move anywhere. I am on a laptop right now, so I have the function keys at the very top of my keyboard from F1 to F12. To activate them, there is a button named FN next to the Windows button at the bottom left corner of the keyboard. So I'm just going to press FN, and then I will press the function F4. What that does, it's going to surround the letters with dollar signs, and that just means I am successfully locking the range in place. It's not going to move anywhere. Now I'm going to put a comma just like this suggests, and then it's asking now about the criteria. I want this function to move down to private, public, others, so I am going to click on carpool to start, and I'm not going to lock that cell in place because I want it to move down as the function moves down. I want everything else that is not locked to move down with it. So now I'm just going to click enter. It counted how many carpool I have, which is 10. So I'm just going to type 10 here. I need this function to do the same for private, public, others, but I don't want to repeat the process because the entire idea of using Excel is to try to save some time. So what I can do here, there is, if you can see here, there is a green square at the bottom right corner of this cell that has 10. I'm going to put my mouse cursor on it. You see how it changes from this white 3D almost plus sign to this 2D black plus sign. When I see that happen, I'm going to double click. Or you can just hold that and then hold the left key on your mouse and then drag it down as if you're copying the formula. So now if I double click on the second cell that has 5, I see that to compute that it used 2 cells, this red one, which is basically the criteria E5, and then the range is still the same, it didn't change. So this is my range, it's the correct one, it didn't change, so I know it did it correctly. Let me show you an example of what happens if I don't lock the range. So I'm just going to copy everything, I'm going to paste it here. Let's say frequency again. Let me say here, CountIf. I'm not going to lock the range. I'm just going to highlight it, select it, and then comma. I'm going to click on carpool just like I did before. You see, it did it for the first one, but notice what's going to happen when I populate. Double click here. It did the same numbers. Okay. And the only reason that it did the same number because I have carpool, carpool, carpool at the beginning. So let me just switch up the data a little bit, like replace one with another. So let me just say this is other, and I'm gonna say one of the other is carpool. Okay, this was just a coincidence. Now, if you notice here what happened, you see the numbers have changed for the other, because if I double click here, you will see that the formula, it moved down from 10 to 5 to 3 to 1. That is 3 rows down. And as you can see, the range has moved down 3 rows as well. It's not counting the 3 first rows of my raw data. And that's why I don't have an accurate answer for the last one. So that is why we locked the range in place, or our raw data in place, to avoid that mistake from happening, because we don't want that to move anywhere. So this is basically the frequency table, and I can come here and fill in the information 3, 2. Now I want to find relative frequencies. You can find the relative frequencies by using the formula. The formula says the relative frequency is equal to each frequency divided by the total number of frequencies. So I needed the total number of frequencies, meaning I have to add these up. Although I know they add up to 20, because that is exactly the sample size, but I'm going to just make sure that I have it right. So I need to add all of the numbers in this column. I'm going to type equals. I will use the function sum, double click it, and now it's asking me select your numbers that you want to add. So I'm going to select the numbers that I want to add and click enter, and for sure the total was 20. Now I'm going to find the relative frequencies. Relative frequencies are equal to the frequency divided by the total number of frequencies. So I want to type just one formula and then populate from there. So I'm just going to say equals. I will click on 10 because I want this column to move down to 5 and 3 and 2 and do the same thing. Divided by, since 20 is one number, there is no need for me to click on it. If you click on it, on the 20, you need to lock it in place, because because otherwise it's going to move down as the formula moves down, and it's going to divide everything by 0, and you're going to get an error. Let me show you what's going to happen if I don't lock this in place. And then I go ahead and populate. I will have an error. Why? To figure this out, I'm going to click on one of these errors. It is using cell number F5, which is this cell right here that has the 5, divided by F9, which is this cell that doesn't have anything. Why? Because the formula moved down once, so everything has to move down once. And I clicked on this cell without locking it in place. So to fix this, I am just going to type 20. I can use this ribbon right here, or this function bar right here to fix it, instead of retyping everything again. Enter, and then I'm going to double click to populate. So this is the relative frequencies. You can basically type them here, or 0.5, 0.25, 0.15, or you can copy and paste 0.1, but one at a time. It's not going to copy the entire column for you. Okay, is there an easier way to do this? Yes, there is an easier way to do all of this, which is going to be basically creating a table, an Excel table. So I'm just going to paste the first column here. I will write frequency, and I will write relative frequency. Okay, I'm going to select everything. I will select a space that I want to turn into a table, which is, it appears to be this square right here. And then I will go to the Insert tab. From the Insert tab, let me just make this a little bit bigger. From the Insert tab, I will select a table, just an Excel regular table. So I'm just going to say OK, and then I will have my table created for me. To deal with tables, it's sometimes easy to deal with tables, sometimes they're more complicated than that. But in this case, it works well, because when you just work one function, it automatically populates the entire table for you. So let me show you. CountIf, and then you're going to select your range. And I am intentionally not going to lock it in place, comma. And then you're going to click on carpool and then click enter. You see it did that mistake, so I needed to lock it in place. So let's say you forgot to lock it in place. You're gonna click on the first formula you created, and you're gonna just go to the formula bar right here, and you're going to select your range again. And now you're going to lock it in place. So Fn, and then the function F4 for me, and then I'm going to click enter. It automatically fixes everything. So you don't need to double click again and populate and all of that stuff. Now I know that the sum of all frequencies are 20. But you can say equals sum, and then select that 20. And then find the relative frequency, so the cell divided by 20, and then click enter, and it will compute the relative frequency for you without trying to populate it. Okay, so now we answered part B. We want to see which one of these bar charts represent the data given. I can create a bar graph on Excel. The steps are, you're going to select your 2 columns from the frequency table, and then you're going to click insert. From the chart section, you're going to choose the bar chart, and you're going to select the 2D column. This bar chart is, you can customize it as you wish. You can add axis titles, and you can say this is transportation, and you can say the other axis is frequency, and then you can edit the title as well, bar graph. You can also edit the color of the bars. double click on the bars and then click on the bucket here, and you want to change the fill color. And now from here you can change it to any color you want. It's customizable, you can change it any way you want. So this is how you're gonna create a bar graph. As you can see here, my first bar is reaching 10 because the frequency is 10, and the second bar for private is reaching to 5, the length is 5, the public is 3, and the other is 2. So let me see which one of these matches. The first one 10 and then 5, but this one is 5, so that doesn't match. This is 12, so this doesn't match immediately. This first one is 10, this is 5, this is 3, and this is 2. So this is the chart that we want. Just to make sure, I'm going to check the other two. This is 10, this is 7, so it doesn't match. So that is the bar chart that we are looking for. Lastly, we're going to represent it with a pie chart. Which one of these represents a pie chart? So we're going to follow the same steps when we created the bar graph. Instead of choosing a bar graph, we're going to choose a pie chart. So I'm going to delete this one. Now I'm going to select the first two columns of the frequency table, not the relative frequency table. And then I am going to use insert. This is the good thing about Excel, is you don't need the relative frequency table to create the pie chart. It does that automatically for you. So I selected the two columns, the criteria and the frequency, insert, and now I'm going to choose the pie chart, and I will choose this 2D pie chart. You'll notice that we don't have any numbers in here. You can add data labels like that, but this is not going to give you the percentages. So there is a little secret that we have here. You can double click on the pie chart until you see chart design, and then you're going to choose one of these designs that displays the percentages. Okay, I'm going to choose this one just because it's a little bit clearer. And then you're going to match this pie chart with one of these pie charts. I see 50% here, and I see 50% here for carpool. So I know it's either this one or that one. So I eliminated the first and the third pie charts immediately. The second one is private. I have the key here. So private is 25%. So private PV is private. That's 25%. And then PV, which is public, which is gray in this case and orange in this case, that is 15. And the last one, which is other, is 10%. So I see this is the right chart versus this last one, which is the private is 15%. In this case, we have it 25% as the key here is showing us. So I know this is the correct chart that we need to select, and I submitted my question. And as you can see here, I got the green color on all of my answers. So this is how you're going to answer this question and apply that to the rest of the questions that you have on the first homework. I hope this question helped you understand how to use Excel in order to create frequency table, relative frequency table, a bar graph, and a pie chart. I will see you in a different video. Thank you.